Come on now, fellas! We've got to answer the bell. Now let's go!
Welcome into the Wednesday edition, the Hump Day edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint. I'm Maurice Patton. Chris Yow is feverishly working on some production stuff over here. And Justin Kulik, as always, back in the production room, making us sound and look good. And so,
wherever that may be.
It's relative. It's relative.
On any given time, it might be. You never know.
You are killing it in that sweater.
Justin is putting forth his best effort.
Yes.
Sometimes things are out of his control.
I appreciate
We
that.
won't get into that. But anyway, it's Wednesday. It's a big show. We'll wrap it up with Wild and Wacky Wednesday, as we do every Wednesday, and I've actually got a contribution.
You save your contributions like you have to Wild and Wacky. You don't always have something. When you do, totally worth it.
It
never
comes,
fails.
I come strong.
That's right. It's quality over quantity.
Absolutely. There we go. Prior to our Wild and Wacky segment, we will have our favorite Bruin, Landon Sechrist.
Don't tell Casey, but yeah,
I'll tell Casey.
he probably won't care.
Landon Sechrist at Seco_sports going to join us for some NBA talk. There's a certain team in the association on a bit of a streak, and we wanted to check in with Landon on that and also see how practice with the Lady Bruins is going. And in our next segment, we're going to be joined by Blake Lovell of Southeastern14.com, talk a little SEC basketball as got into league play last night or got further into league play last night. Both of our area Southeastern Conference men's basketball teams came up with wins. That's no big shock for one, but for the other,
We were hopeful.
Yeah. So, well, a lot of folks had kind of identified that game as one that they really needed to win. And so, as a certain coach said, we were having so much fun, we played an extra 5 minutes.
Did you happen to see the last 10 seconds? Yeah, oh my goodness.
Pretty crazy.
Good Lord. So anyway,
that's
going to be fun to talk about.
Yeah. Going to talk a little bowl stuff because
we didn't get to that yesterday because we were a little busy.
A little busy among other things, but yeah. So, Chris, are you wrapped up?
Good to go.
You're good to go. Well, I guess before we get into much of anything show-wise, we need to get to yesterday's results at the high school level and otherwise. Yeah. And today's schedule on the rundown.
Justin.
The rundown.
Hey, yeah, that's cool.
Can
Your audio is coming through your computer,
Oh, sorry.
and it's not coming through your mixer, which is why I think we're having some issues. There we go.
Sorry about that.
All good. We're good to go now. Now
The rundown. Girls basketball scores from Tuesday night. Clarksville Academy defeated Mount Juliet Christian 75-15. It was Webb School of Bell Buckle with 6 Power 5 signees, by the way, defeating Columbia Academy 76-21. Cookville with a 51-41 win over Oakland. Oh, by the way, there's some coverage of that Webb CA game on MainStreetMurray.com. Cookville defeated Oakland 51-41. Community 65, Eagleville 48. Ezel Harding with a 52-31 win over Donaldson Christian. Father Ryan defeated Christ Presbyterian Academy 41-28. It was Good Pasture 57, Friendship Christian 36, Gallatin 56, Wilson Central 35, Marshall County 50, Giles County 29, Stewart's Creek 75, Glencliff 4, Beach 44, Green Hill 35. Creekwood defeated Harpeth 66-32. Ensworth with a 63-54 win over Harpeth. Houston County 92, Montgomery Central 35. Mount Juliet 68, Hunters Lane 33. Fairview with the 44-41 win over Independence. Also coverage of that at Main Street Preps and Main Street Murray. And Overton 51, Valor Collegiate 33.
Station Camp 67, Kenwood 42, Lebanon 57-39 winner over Ravenwood. Liberty Creek down Hume Park 65-22, and Middle Tennessee Christian was a 48-37 winner over Franklin Road Academy. Sycamore Edge Murfreesboro Central Magnet 46-45 was Brentwood 39-35 winners over Nolensville. Lipscomb Academy got a 52-19 win over Pope Prep. Rossview down Dixon County 56-50. Smyrna 34, Centennial 19, and Springfield 51, White House Heritage 43. Summit took care of Franklin 67-47, and Watertown down FC Boyd Christian 38-23. Cheatham County a 62-39 win over West Creek. Westmoreland 48, Portland 27, and Culleoka 52. Zion Christian 33.
In boys action on Tuesday night, it was Battleground Academy defeating University School of Nashville 62-55. Clarksville Academy with an 89-34 win over Mount Juliet Christian. Webb School Nailbiter 56-55 over Columbia Academy. Cookville with a 70-54 win over Oakland. Eagleville defeated Community 50-39. It was Ezel Harding 61, Donaldson Christian 40, Christ Presbyterian 64, Father Ryan 57. Good Pasture with a 64-50 win over Friendship Christian. Gallatin defeated Wilson Central 44-30. It was Giles County 52, Marshall County 50. Stewart's Creek with a 60-53 win over Glencliff. Green Hill defeated Beach 56-38. Creekwood 47, Harpeth 48, Mount Juliet with a 46-42 win over Hunters Lane. Independence down Fairview 70-60. Overton with a 57-51 win over Valor Collegiate. Kenwood 50, Station Camp 44, and Laverne 64, Clarksville Northeast 61.
Was Lebanon edging Ravenwood 50-47. Liberty Creek down Hume Fog 54-47. MBA 57-31 over Ensworth. It was MTCS 72. Franklin Road Academy 52. Murfreesboro Central Magnet down Sycamore 72-60. And Davidson Academy down Nashville Christian 70-57. It was Brentwood 57. Nolensville 54. East Nashville 71-65 winners over Pearl Cone in that rivalry game. Always fun. Providence Christian 45-40 winners over Grace Franklin. It was Rossview 84, Dixon County 62, Centennial 56-45 winners over Smyrna. Springfield 53, White House Heritage 38. Franklin down Summit 69-31, and Watertown winners over FC Boyd 63-15. It was Cheatham County 67, West Creek 64, and Zion Christian 49-36 winners over Culleoka.
Men's college basketball action on Tuesday. It was Tennessee with an 87-53 win over Mississippi State. In overtime at Memorial Gym, Vanderbilt with an 84-79 win over South Carolina. Junior college men's action, Columbia State with an 82-63 win over Birmingham Southern's junior varsity. National Hockey League action, the Preds finding the net. A 6-3 win over the Montreal Canadiens. Today's schedule at the high school level, couple of double headers, both 6 o'clock starts. Clarksville is at Clarksville Northwest, and Shelbyville is at Hillwood. Women's basketball, junior college action. It's Volunteer State at Wabash Valley. That's a 5 o'clock start, with the men following at 7. Also in men's basketball action, Belmont in the Valley. Sounds a little presumptuous, but hey. Missouri Valley action. Belmont is at Illinois Chicago. That's a 7 o'clock start on ESPN Plus. And in the NBA, the Grizzlies are at Charlotte against the Hornets. That's a 6 o'clock start on Valley Sports Southeast. And that is the rundown.
All right. Top story time. A little top story action here. Mo, as I mentioned to you just before we got on the air, some coaching news in the world of college football, as Bobby Petrino will not be the offensive coordinator at Nevada, Las Vegas. He announced on December 15th that he would be. And on January 4th,
Didn't even make it a month.
he is not. But
It's understandable. I mean,
it is, especially when you figure out that the reason is because he's decided to take the job as offensive coordinator for Texas A&M University, including play calling, Mo.
is this a mo money, mo problems type situation, though?
For who? For Bobby Petrino?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so. Let's be honest. He can always go back to UNLV at any point. There's a lot of places that Bobby Petrino can end up.
He can always go home, probably at this point of his career.
I mean, go to the house, dude. Yeah, seriously. But I think this is one of those. Jimbo had to make a big move. And so I'm curious what they're paying him.
Jimbo was calling plays, I assume.
Yes.
That's an interesting dynamic to me. And we've got a youngster in the area who's going to be right in the middle of all that.
Yeah. I'm curious to see how Marcel Reed's going to fare in what has always been a very dynamic offense.
Well, I mean, and when you look at who these two guys have worked with,
it's a laundry list of great college football quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And yet,
Jameis Winston and Lamar Jackson,
particularly,
to name two pretty prominent ones. So,
of course, he's also had, Bobby Petrino also had guys like Mitch Mustaine at Arkansas. He also had who's the kid that ended up at with the Patriots, the tall kid, 6'7".
Matt Jones.
No. Matt Jones may have been one of his quarterbacks as well, but that's not who I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Did not get a lot done at the professional level, but yeah, I
No. But look, under Bobby Petrino, Arkansas became a pretty solid football team.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they were good before, but that's neither here nor there.
Ryan Mallett. That's
it. But I mean, those are really good football teams back, in 08, 09. He took Arkansas to the Sugar Bowl, won 11 games in 2011 before his untimely firing.
His untimely motorcycle accident. Yeah.
Won the Cotton Bowl that year. Spent a year at Western Kentucky where he went 8-4. Went back to Louisville where he was really good until he wasn't. Won 9 games, 8 games, 9 games, 8 games, then 2. How do you go 9, 8, 9, 8, 2? That's very weird. But took another year off. Comes back and takes over one of the worst programs in FCS. Goes 5-5, but those 5 wins were all in conference play in the Valley.
You talking about Missouri State?
And
I'm glad we don't have Heather on today.
they were not good.
Yeah.
And Petrino turns around, wins the Missouri Valley Conference, goes to the playoffs. Next year, ends up second in the conference, wins 8 games, goes to the playoffs. And then this year they went 5-6, 3-5 in the conference. Didn't have a great year.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, this is a pair of guys who have SEC coaching experience, who have done it at the highest level, who have won some of the biggest games in college football. And now you got to deal with them if you're in the SEC West, at least for one more year, because then the West goes away, I guess.
Because they're not going to have divisions, right?
Correct.
But yeah, that's an interesting hire. I think it's an interesting hire on Jimbo Fisher's part. And again, particularly the relinquishing of play calling duties.
That's huge. But is this one of those situations like Scott Frost was in last year where he had to, make a bunch of changes or else kind of thing?
If it was a make a bunch of changes or else kind of thing, though, wouldn't it have taken place before January 4th?
Well, they were trying to hire him in December. I don't know why he decided not to come to Texas A&M. Maybe it was he wasn't going to get to call plays, and now he is going to get to call plays. I don't know. Or maybe he just wanted the chance to work with Marcel Reed. I don't know the answer to that. That's Stranger things. But
I mean, he is a talented young man.
And
I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do again under the tutelage of Fisher Petrino.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. I was obviously interested last year in Texas A&M's upcoming season, all off season, but now I'm really interested because they can't be as bad as they were last year again. That just seems like a statistical anomaly.
Not just a statistical anomaly. I don't think they can go through that again and Jimbo come out of it.
Bobby Petrino may be the head coach by the end of the year if they get halfway through and it's the same thing. Now, Ron Selesky, who the former head coach of the Birmingham Steel Dogs, who's worked in the NFL and the CFL and the USFL and every other FL that you can find, he says that Petrino is the head coach in waiting. And I say the only way he's the head coach in waiting is if he's only waiting half the year. I can't imagine they would hire Bobby Petrino in 10 years or however long. What is it, 8 years?
I can't imagine Jimbo Fisher hiring his successor.
Unless it was going to be when he retires in 8 years, whenever his contract is up.
Yeah. And which wouldn't be Bobby Petrino.
Right, because Petrino's got to be close to the same age as him. I mean, Petrino is 61. So he's not going to become the head coach at Texas A&M at 70 years old. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So anyway, interesting to say the least.
No doubt.
Well, let's take a break. We have Blake Lovell from the Southeastern 14 going to join us here in just a moment. So stick around here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint. We'll be back after this. Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint treats your orthopedic injuries and existing conditions. Our trained physicians will get you back in the game faster. Contact us at 931-381-2663 or www.mtbj.net. Hey folks, While we take a quick break from the show, I want to tell you about our friends over at Custom Stone Handlers in downtown Columbia. Ed Rich and his team at Custom Stone Handlers believe in leadership. And outside of the military, our greatest leader building platform is sports. Custom Stone Handlers proudly encourages young people to get in the game. You can contact them today at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, ZionEagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's ZionEagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
Are you an enthusiastic sports fan? Want to have fun and get in on the action?
Heck yes, that'd be awesome.
Have great attention to detail? Want to stay active?
Definitely.
Want to give back to the student athletes in your community?
Obviously, yes.
Then you'd make an excellent high school sports official. We need more officials in Tennessee. Because with no high school officials, there are no high school sports. Sign up today at highschoolofficials.com.
Mid-Tennessee Bone & Joint has been the official sports medicine provider for Murray County Schools for more than 40 years. We specialize in orthopedic injuries, and our Ortho Quick walk-in service lets you bypass the ER. Visit us online at www.mtbj.net. Welcome back in Main Street Sports today, presented by Mid-Tennessee Bone & Joint. Chris Yow alongside Mo Patton. Coming to you live from southern Middle Tennessee, down here in Columbia. Across Middle Tennessee, we are talking sports, whether it be preps, all the way up to pros, and anything in between, including college hoops. And that's what we'll do right now as we bring in from Southeastern 14, Blake Lovell. Blake, welcome in, man.
Hey, guys. How are you?
Doing well, Blake. Appreciate you taking some time with us this afternoon. Another big night in the Southeastern Conference last night, particularly for the closest team to us, I guess. Vanderbilt has had its struggles over the course of this season, and I think as a lot of people were looking at the Southeastern Conference and kind of wondering where the Commodores might gain a little traction, last night's matchup with South Carolina was one that kind of jumped out, and ultimately they were able to take care of business last night, 84-79 in overtime. But, you know, Blake, what did you see out of Vanderbilt that should encourage their fan base going forward, if anything?
Yeah, it's I know it's been a frustrating several years, to say the least, but you know, I thought that was the kind of game you have to win, right? Like that's all there is to it. Like if you're going to make progress as a program, you have to beat the worst team in the SEC, and South Carolina has been the worst team in the SEC at this point, and there hasn't been a lot of debate about that. And I think so. You can take away the fact that you found a way to win the game. I know it goes to overtime, kind of on a wild play, but I think just getting a 1-0 start, knowing what's coming up, that gives you something, because the next 4 games, I think, are Missouri, Tennessee, Arkansas, and Bama, which I think you could argue are the top 4 teams in the SEC. Getting those wins are going to be challenging, but I mean, the roster itself, you know, I think they can rely on the older guys, you know, like Robbins, like Magnon, like Jordan Wright. Beyond that, I think it's going to be hit or miss with Vanderbilt the rest of the season, just based on the schedule they're going to play. And, you know, I don't – does Vanderbilt have the upside of a team that can make the NCAA tournament? I just don't think so. I don't think the roster is quite there, and I think the problem has become the SEC has just gotten a lot tougher, and they've just kind of hit that wall as a program. Yes, they made strides last year. We can't discount that. But in terms of making that big jump to get back to, you know, being what they used to be, which was, whether people want to remember it or not, you know, they were regularly a top 5-6 team in the SEC every year for the most part, outside of a down year here or there. So it's a frustrating time. I don't know that things get that much better this season, but you take what you can get. And I think a win to start SEC play is about the most optimistic you could be. So,
you know, and I guess, Blake, I'm not sure that what Vanderbilt has put on the floor to this point was what was expected this year. But, you don't lose a Scottie Pippen Jr. and not feel it, obviously. But at the same time, it's like, and we talked to your counterpart, Chris Lee, about this a couple of weeks ago. There's no offensive anchor for this team right now. And I don't necessarily know who that was supposed to have been coming into this season, but that has not presented itself.
And I think for Vanderbilt fans, that has to be one of the biggest points of probably frustration with Jerry Stackhouse since he's been there is, I mean, you said it, like, let's be honest, like everything they've done has really relied on Scottie Pippen, up until this season. And when you take that aspect out of there, now you're not going to be able to go out and just find another one of him, right? Like, I don't think the expectations were going to be fair to say we're just going to go out this offseason and find that exact same player. But, has the roster been constructed to give them that opportunity to account for not having someone like that on the floor? And like you just said, I think when you look at it, I think the answer to that is no. And again, that's a hard thing to do just to replace him. But I think the overall roster itself, if you go up and down the line and you're comparing Vanderbilt's roster to a lot of other rosters in the SEC, it's easy to point out and say they just don't pack that extra whatever it is, to be able to consistently beat the other teams in the league, a lot of other teams. Because, like I said, if we're talking about the top teams in the SEC, Alabama, look at what they can do scoring wise. Look at what Missouri's doing. I mean, Missouri's one of the best offensive teams in the country, and they've done that in one season. In one off season, Dennis Gates has come in and flipped everything kind of the way that Konzo Martin had it. And that's not a knock on Konzo Martin. He played a different style. But now they are so good offensively that it's completely changed the trajectory of their program. And so I think when you look at it that way, you now have that luxury to do that in college basketball, as you guys know. I mean, really, you can go out and flip your entire program in one off season because of the transfer portal, because of recruiting. But I think they're kind of playing the long game at Vanderbilt. And I don't know. Like, I think it's just that they're still behind when you look at the rosters everywhere else.
Blake Lovell of Southeastern14.com joining us here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint. Brighter prospects, obviously, for that team to the east, as a lot of Vanderbilt folks like to refer to them. Tennessee, despite falling a spot in this week's AP poll to number 8, throttles what many consider to be a pretty good Mississippi State team, 87-53 last night. JoJo James back. Was that his first game back, Blake?
That's the first time he's played. Honestly, guys, I mean, I was looking up the numbers earlier. I think he had played a total of 30 minutes, I want to say, in the past, since November 16th. He had played 30 minutes total, and that was only 2-game stretch where they kind of put him on the, we're going to limit you to this amount of minutes. But he hadn't played, I think, 8 or 9 games. So, yeah, first game back, and I thought that was a huge boost for him. So
that's a huge boost for a team that didn't necessarily need one.
Yeah, right. And I mean, look how good they were without him. And that's what I kept saying. We kept talking about them. Like, we're like, man, I kept bringing his name up. And I know people are like, why do you, keep saying this guy? Well, like, well, look, if you watched him play, I mean, I think we said coming in the season, like, to me, he felt like the X factor. Like he's the guy that can do a little bit of everything. And he just kind of he has that skill set to where he can help them in so many different areas. And now when you consider what they've done without him, yeah, I mean, if last night was an indicator of what they can do with another body, and by another body, we mean someone that, can go out there and play 30 plus minutes if healthy and give them production in different spots. Yeah, I mean, Tennessee, I think to me right now, it's like Alabama and Tennessee are 1A and 1B in the SEC. And I think both have Final Four upside. Now, I know Tennessee fans don't want to hear that because that gets scary when you start talking about the NCAA tournament and what can happen there. But
well, when you start talking about the NCAA tournament and their coach, let's just call it what it is.
I mean, fair, unfair, we're going to have that discussion. And that's the thing, right? It's like they could be dominant and win the SEC this season. But once we get to the tournament, we're going to have the same discussion. But if we just focus on last night, like you said, Mississippi State was a team prior to giving up 78 to Alabama. they'd only given up more than 59 points once this season. And their schedule wasn't great in the non-conference, but for Tennessee to go out and get up 16-0, score 87 points on them, that shows you what Tennessee's capable of when they're hitting shots. And that's what they did last night. They hit shots from outside. If they're doing that, there's not a team in the SEC that's going to beat them, Alabama included. We'll see if that's more consistent in terms of their offense because, again, the defense, they're the best defensive team in the country, in my opinion. Offensively, you never know sometimes, but I think they're starting to figure some things out.
Shot 70% from the floor, 36 of 52, 12 of 21 from three. JoJo James, 17 minutes, 3 of 5 from the floor, 2 of 2 from three, 8 points. So, I mean, and 4 assists, which, I mean, they're not numbers that are going to blow you away. But again, for a guy who had not played a whole lot,
he brings the defense to him, though, because a lot of people know that he is that X factor, which leaves Santiago Vescovi wide open way too often. And he found the bottom of the net last night. Just about every time he threw it up, it found some way to go in. So you got to be impressed with what Tennessee's got going. And like you said, Blake, Alabama seems to be, right there with Tennessee at the top of the league. And talk about throwing stuff up and finding the bottom of the net. Brandon Miller from about 38 feet.
Longer.
Or maybe 45.
Longer. Yes.
Just absolutely just a really, really solid basketball player and has been everything Alabama expected of him coming out of Cane Ridge. This Alabama team, Javon Quinterly, everybody that you look at, they've just got guys everywhere, just dogs all over the floor. Yeah.
They're impressive. And the difference, well, there's two differences in last season and this season. One difference is they're much better defensively. Last season, it was so frustrating to watch Alabama play defense. And I think Nate Oates realized that in terms of how he constructed his roster this offseason and bringing in the guys that he's brought in. Of course, the other difference is the fact that they had Brandon Miller on the floor. And I think even I probably underestimated the impact he was going to have right away. Just coming, you never know. Coming into college, as good as guys are, you just never know at this level sometimes. I mean, it can take certain guys a little time, even if they're, projected high draft picks and such. You just never know how it's all going to come together and maybe blend in with the rest of the roster. But to me right now, I think he's the SEC Player of the Year at this point. Now look, we got a long.
You didn't say Freshman of the Year, did you?
No, Player of the Year. He's the best. He's the best. And okay, I don't want to take anything away from Oscar Tshiebwe, but like if you're talking about the most impactful players to their team, I think it's Brandon Miller and Oscar Tshiebwe. And yes, it's very close together. But if I had to vote right now, which I don't get a vote, I would vote Brandon Miller. And I just think when you look at what he's done, he's the best player I've seen in the SEC this season. And I even went as far to say this, guys. And I mean, Mo, you know me a little bit. Like I'm not someone that likes to throw out hot takes and all this, but just from me watching SEC basketball over the years, and you've seen a lot, like you know how it works. But I think he's one of the best SEC freshmen I've seen. And I mean, just in terms of like skill set wise. Now, look, there's been guys, we know John Wall, go up and down the list, right? There's been a lot of great freshmen that have come through. But when you just look at him, at how he plays and everything that's there, all the things he can do to be this young, I mean, I think he's in that discussion just because of how impactful he's been. And like I said, I think even I would have discounted his ability to be at this point, 13, 14 games into the season. He's just been remarkable. So
and the thing is, Blake, usually when you're talking about freshmen of that magnitude in this league, they're wearing blue and white.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I can't think of another freshman who's been as impactful as Brandon Miller has that hasn't played for Kentucky.
Yeah. No, you're right. That's a good point. And that, I think, shows you, to be honest, like it ties into the Vanderbilt discussion of the changing landscape of the SEC and how different it is now because of it's not just Kentucky going out and getting every guy that's out there and it just being the same. I mean, I felt like year after year there, we knew it was Kentucky at the top. It felt like Florida, was usually going to be that second team when Billy Donovan was there. And you just kind of always banked on that. Everybody else, it was a matter of, okay, who's going to kind of pop into that range and really try to figure out who's the third and fourth, fifth best team. But I think when you look at it from this standpoint now, it can, I mean, we've seen like Nate Oates at Alabama, Eric Musselman at Arkansas, Bruce Pearl at Auburn, go up and down the line. I mean, again, look at what Missouri's done this season in 13 games under Dennis Gates. Not saying they're going to win the league, but you can go out and get players everywhere now. And the top players have a lot more choices because it's not just a matter of going to Kentucky anymore and building a, 7 guys that are all going to go be the top 15 picks in the draft. And so that's made it harder on John Calipari to sustain his success, but it's also put a lot of other teams on the map. And Brandon Miller in Alabama, that gives you a chance to win the SEC championship. And, kudos to Nate Oates for realizing that and going out and getting them. So
is this the beginning of the end for John Calipari in Lexington?
I said something close to that probably a couple weeks ago. Well, I mean, I guess it would have been last week after they lost that game at Missouri. I just think we have reached a point where, I mean, you guys have seen it. Like, offensively, they are behind the times. Like, they are trying to run an offense that did work when John Calipari had 7 of the top 20 players in college basketball. But now it's so different. And I think that their offense has not caught up with, again, what an Alabama is doing, what a Bruce Pearl has done over the years, whether it's Auburn, whether it's Tennessee, what Arkansas has done under Eric Musselman. The Kentucky just plays an offense that is so frustrating to watch. And I think, I'll say this and with the caveat that Kentucky's got a class coming in next season that could just completely destroy all records. Like that, it is a tremendous class. If you just look at it up and down, they have a chance to really kind of have John Calipari's revenge tour next year if they want to. But it's how he puts the pieces together. The fact is, Kentucky, I mean, look, think about it, guys. Like, think about how long it's been since they've made it to the Final Four. I mean, it's been a long time. That was 2015. That's 7 years. In Kentucky terms, like that's might as well be 50 years, right? I mean, it's a long time. And and look, I'm not saying I don't blame Kentucky fans for this at all. This is what they built over the years as a program.
Right.
They think they should win the national championship every season. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with having high expectations. It's not going to happen in this era, but if that's your expectation, or at least get us to the Final Four every year, every other year, they haven't been there since 2015. And so at a certain point, I think, does Kentucky fire John Calipari? Let's say if they go out in the first or second round this season. I don't think so. But does Cal eventually get to the point where it's like, whew, does the pressure of what
Is this
it has become?
Right. I mean, it's like Nolan Richardson said when he was at Arkansas, when you create the beast, then you got to feed it. And right now they're kind of starving in Lexington. I mean, when you look at this week's AP Top 25, there are 5 Southeastern Conference teams in it, and Kentucky ain't one of them.
Yep.
And that's what I was going to ask. In terms of depth of this league, you're talking. We've talked about Alabama, Tennessee. You mentioned Auburn; they're 11-2, ranked 22nd in the country. Arkansas is 0-1 in league play, by the way, and they're 13th in the country because LSU just beat them. Where does the SEC rank among, basketball conferences right now in terms of depth? Because it seems like it's one of the deepest in the country.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're probably still looking to me at like I think the Big 12, you got a lot of kind of really good teams
find
there.
out.
And yeah, I mean, that's right. We will find out.
In the challenge, the last one ever, but we'll find out.
I was going to say the last challenge, and in all honesty, like I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing because going in with the ACC has become I don't know. But but when you think about, again, where the ACC is now, where the SEC, there's a big gap there, in my opinion. But I think you're still looking at the Big 12 probably is the best conference. The Big 10, let's face it, we're an SEC country. There's always going to be a debate with SEC versus the Big 10. And there's a lot of good teams there. Let's be honest. Like there are some good teams in the Big 10. But I think with the SEC, the high-level teams, and it's what we just talked about a second ago, you have 5 teams that are in the top 25 that have the elite potential. It's not just, again, like we mentioned earlier, it's not just Kentucky's great, Florida's maybe great, maybe it's Tennessee or another team in there. They're great. And then you just got some teams that are kind of average in there. Like I think now, I think Alabama and Tennessee are good enough to win it all. Like I didn't, without a bracket, you can't make that projection or anything, but like they have the skill, I think, to get there. Then you're looking at Arkansas, right? Arkansas has been playing without Nick Smith, who is a surefire top 5 pick in the NBA draft. And we don't know when he's going to be back. If he gets back, then I think you're talking about Arkansas with a team that can be right there with Tennessee and Alabama. Kentucky at their best. Can they get there? Sure. So like the top tier, I'd put the top tier up against the top tier in any other conference because you feel pretty confident that these teams are built to do that. Then I think you look at it from a depth standpoint. Like you're not, I think Vanderbilt and South Carolina are the 2 worst teams in the league. Then I think you have a lot of questions with, let's say, like teams like Florida, Ole Miss, A&M. But then you've got that very intriguing tier of an LSU, of a Missouri. So yes, like I think continually now the league has gotten to where you expect 7, 8 teams to at least have a chance to make the NCAA tournament. Some years it's more than that. But this year is kind of one of those where you got a lot of new coaches and they're kind of rebuilding things. Missouri, as we said, way ahead of schedule. I think LSU is too. But yes, the league, I think, is way more stable now, obviously, than it used to be. But as it compares to other, I think the Big 12 is the only surefire conference maybe that you would say, I think they're still better. I think you put the SEC in a debate with the Big 10 and Pac-12, wherever else. I think it's kind of gotten to that point as a league. So
Blake Lovell, southeastern14.com. You can find him at the Blake Lovell on Twitter. And if you're a college basketball fan, particularly in the SEC, you owe it to yourself to do so. Blake, thank you so much for spending some time with us this afternoon. Look forward to getting you on with us again because I've still got a couple of unanswered questions, but we'll get you back and pick your brain some more.
No, that sounds great. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
All righty. Gonna take a break. How long a break? Are we taking a short break? We're taking a long break?
Probably a short break here, and because we'll talk a little bowls. Big wins for some big programs in the bowl season. What did we learn, though? We'll talk about it right after this. Main Street Sports Today, presented by Mid-Tennessee Bone & Joint. Back after this. This is Chris Yow with Main Street Sports Today. Every show, Mo Patton and I welcome friends from all across the sports landscape, from high school coaches and reporters to national, college, and pro sports personalities. You never know who might stop by for a chat.
She's on Thinking Out Loud, presented by Regions, and Out of Pocket with Alyssa Lang. It is, in fact, Alyssa Lang.
I'm a little nervous. I'm going to lower the bar for guests now.
Oh, no.
Apologies in advance. It sounds like
SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey.
You got that radio voice.
I do.
It's a good sound.
Thanks for radio, too.
As do we. And then here's the other thing. You guys, you're spot on with the name. Everybody wants to be on Main Street. Everybody wants to be on Main Street.
And we reach every main street in Middle Tennessee, Coach?
Yeah, that's it. So
Perfect.
when you are on Main Street and you are moving,
You got to love it.
like you're moving, I was impressed.
I'm glad someone...
Welcome back in. Man, that was such a great interview with Cutcliffe.
As long as we didn't screw it up, it was going to be a great
yeah.
interview because, it's David Cutcliffe.
Yeah, Coach Cutcliffe was great. Enjoyed that. So
That was fun.
If you missed that, this past Monday, we actually had that interview air on our Best Of show. So if you go back and watch Monday's show, you can watch that interview with Coach.
And you don't have to dig all the way back to July to find it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you can just go to Monday. Mo, bowl season was pretty crazy. Let's be honest. I think we learned a lot, though. And one of the things that I learned, my biggest takeaway from this bowl season is very simply, when the 12-team playoff happens, we cannot just assume that the group of 5 auto bid is the 12th best team. And I think that's what a lot of people were doing. Tulane was ranked number 16 in the country because they were, 11-2 coming in. They had lost to Central Florida. They lost to Ole Miss. But fact is that they played toe-to-toe with USC and ended up winning the game. Now, how they got to the win was a little weird, but
Does it matter?
I mean, the fact that they played toe-to-toe with USC,
With a 100% Caleb Williams.
with Caleb Williams playing. Now, Caleb Williams certainly wasn't the reason they lost because he had a monster game.
He had a monster game, but they survived it,
But, I mean, you still took it to USC. And this is a team that was top 10 in the country. This is, New Year's 6. This is the Cotton Bowl. We can't just stick the G5 in the 12th spot every year and go on about our business. UCF a couple of years ago beating Auburn. You think about when Utah and Boise State won in the late 2000s in BCS games against Alabama and Oklahoma. I mean, there are a group of 5 teams out there that deserve to be in the conversation. Now, they're obviously it's not likely that they would make the Final Four or the championship game, but nobody thought TCU was going to make it either. And here we are.
Yeah. I mean, I think that you have to give those group of 5 programs that wind up in that mix a little bit more respect, maybe, like you said, as a result of some of the things that we've seen over this bowl season. And, we talked about it going into the bowls. Are bowl games a measurement, with the opt-outs and that kind of thing? One kid that didn't opt out but did go into the transfer portal, we've not had a chance to talk about this. Grayson McCall came out
of the transfer portal.
Yeah, so apparently he's headed back to Coastal, which I'm sure makes their new coach terribly happy.
Yeah. When we're talking about group of 5 teams, just scrolling through these, I mean, there weren't a whole lot of G5 Power 5 matchups, which, by the way, is annoying to me. But, to me, I think we've got to put more respect on these 11-2 teams. They don't have to go undefeated necessarily to be in the top 10, is my point. That being said, some other games that I'm just going to say, obviously we talked about Penn State and where they stood. A lot of folks were saying that was Michigan and Ohio State's best win. Oh, they beat Penn State. Penn State's top 10 team, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, well, we don't really know that because they've not beaten anybody. Well, I'm not saying that Utah is necessarily somebody, but they're a pretty good football team. And now I'm not sure, did the quarterback for Utah opt out or did he get hurt in the game?
No, he got hurt in the game. Cam Rising got hurt in the, early in the second half, I think it was. He injured the same knee, I believe. I think it was his left knee that he has had some issues with previously.
Gotcha.
So.
Well, I wasn't entirely sure because I didn't get a chance to watch all of it as I was dealing with a sprained left foot. So not mine, Charlie's.
Yes.
So I was having to deal with that. But yeah, so I didn't get to see as much of it as I would have liked. But I think that kind of solidified, I was a little leery of Penn State, but I think they kind of proved to me that they were among the better teams in the country, which makes the college football championship or semifinals even that more surprising.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I still don't really know what to make of TCU Michigan. I guess we just have to admit that TCU is better than we thought.
Well, I think
or Michigan's worse.
I think the tweet that I showed you on Saturday from @CFB Nerds basically said, look, Michigan had not dealt with an offense like TCU's with some speed on the outside. That's why Big Ten teams typically struggle with SEC and other conferences, because that's not the type. That's why they struggle with Ohio State, because Ohio State is built that way. They're built with speed.
Right.
And that's why Big Ten teams struggle to beat those two teams. Now, Michigan has been able to hold Ohio State off the last couple of years, but when they've seen Georgia, they've seen TCU, they've not been able defensively to take care of it.
Right.
And I think it's just the explosiveness of those offenses.
Certainly look like it. And the thing is, Michigan scored with TCU there in that fourth quarter, particularly for the most part. But I mean, early on, it looked like TCU was going to boat race them.
Did. I mean, we were kind of keeping an eye on it during the Music City Bowl and after, just kind of shell shocked. And I guess Jim Harbaugh was too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because you have to start making some adjustments, but what adjustments do you make if you just are getting out athleted all over the field?
Yeah, I mean, you can't adjust for people running by you. And there was a lot of that going on.
I mean, that's the facts. I mean, you can't coach speed.
No, and you certainly can't coach it in a half.
No.
I mean, so, it was wild to watch. And because I just didn't expect it. But I mean, like you said, maybe Michigan defensively in particular just isn't built for that. And maybe that's Harbaugh's next challenge, should he decide to accept it.
Or he has two challenges ahead of him. One of them being the Chicago Bears and the other one being that.
The tweets over the last couple of days that Jim Harbaugh will accept a NFL job if offered. Well, yeah.
I mean, he would certainly like to go back. I think he feels like he's done all he can do, and he's hit the ceiling he's going to hit at Michigan. Yeah. Get out while the it's good. Don't overstay your welcome, and we've talked about it.
We have sometimes you gotta strike while the iron is hot, and all those other cliches. But I mean, a CFP berth for this program. I mean, the loss and the way they lost notwithstanding, may be, the ceiling for Michigan football. There's a lot of folks in this area that may not necessarily want to hear that.
Now, let me ask you this. Mm-hmm. Ohio State, toe-to-toe with number one Georgia.
Clearly.
Probably should have won the game. I mean, if Ryan Day calls anything other than a run play on 1st and 10 at the 33 or whatever, they get 5 more yards. I think they win the game. I think the kid was just trying to kick it too hard and ended up pulling it. Trying to make sure he had enough leg on a 50-yarder. Mm-hmm. Instead of, Ryan Day getting him a few extra yards and making it, a 40 to 44-yarder to win it is easy. Now, with that, as bad as they got beat by Michigan at home, what does that sequence tell us about college football right now? I mean, you can't take away from this that the Big Ten is just not good.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the SEC and everybody else narrative kind of wilted a little bit in that ball game.
I think so, but also it kind of validated the Pac or the Big 12. I mean, TCU went in there, didn't even win their conference, and is now playing for a natty.
And the fact that the Big 12 is playing for a natty and it's not, quote, the usual suspects, it's not Texas, it's not Oklahoma, which I would imagine makes the Big 12 pretty happy. Yeah. So, but, when this whole college football playoff was designed, you would have thought if there was a Big 12 team making a run for a championship game, it was going to be a Texas and Oklahoma. maybe an Oklahoma State, certainly not TCU.
Yeah, they were the last team. I mean, you go back and look at their recruiting classes. They had a top 30 recruiting class one time in the last 5 years. And so that just goes to prove how good Sonny Dykes has been. Now, go ahead.
Is there trouble in Athens? Because I had seen rumblings of this on Twitter and that kind of thing, but I hadn't actually checked it out until just now. But apparently Kirby made some comments about his Heisman Trophy finalist quarterback following that Ohio State game. He showed great competitive character, but he's got to play within our system, and he's got to do what he's coached to do, or you can't win games. He didn't get those opportunities until the defense stopped him, and we got fortunate to stop them a couple of times. He must play better if we expect to win the next one.
Well, that's what he told him on the platform. He looked at him on the platform and said, "You've got to play better next week." I mean, I think that may be, as you know, the way that Stetson Bennett has to be coached. That may be part of the way that Kirby Smart coaches Stetson Bennett.
Mm-hmm.
There are kids who respond to that type of coaching better than others.
So you're saying Stetson Bennett may be there's a Kai Ziegler?
Perhaps, yeah. I mean, that may be what he responds to. He would know.
Well, for their sake, I hope so.
Now, Eric Ainge out here calling Stetson Bennett a punk is a little out there. I don't think that's the case.
Bennett was 23 of 34 for 398, 3 touchdowns and a pick.
It's hard to play much better than that. I mean, unless he's just out there going off script. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm intrigued by that.
Same. Now, the team that did win the Big 12, Mo, got trounced by the 4th best team in the SEC. Alabama just dominated Kansas State. After it was 10-0, it was over.
Yeah.
It was like Alabama was toying with them, playing with the yarn, and it has just all unraveled as soon as Bryce Young was like, all right, we're done. Let's go get this thing.
Well, I mean, Bryce Young and Will Anderson didn't not opt out
to lose
to Kansas State. Yeah.
Right. So and you couple that with what Tennessee did to the ACC champion, and maybe it is the SEC and everybody else. I think Ohio State is in a different bracket. I know Michigan beat Ohio State. I get that. But when it comes to championship caliber teams, it's the SEC, Ohio State, and then good luck. Because I'm going to be honest with you. I think Tennessee or Alabama would have done the same thing to Michigan. I think Tennessee or Alabama and Tennessee, fully healthy. Even with Joe Milton, though, hell, I don't know. I think they would compete with TCU because they're similarly styled and they're used to playing that type of against that type of offense. I just think Michigan got shell shocked with their speed, and then they had to play catch up the whole time and still nearly come back.
Yeah,
to win the game.
But I mean, that has to be a little unsettling again when folks are running by you and running away from you.
Just wait, where did he go?
To the end zone.
Where's my guy? Oh, he's
in the end zone.
I mean, to me, it just feels like, you could have put Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama. If this had been a 12-team playoff, I think those 3 teams could have very easily ended up at the top.
In the top
5-4. I really do. Based on what we've seen.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, man. I think this bowl season was a great year for selling the 12-team playoff, though.
As long as you don't have too many Big Ten teams in it, because you saw what LSU did to Purdue.
Well, again, Purdue got there based off of winning a really crappy division. And they were a little unsettled, obviously, with their head coaching change and that kind of thing as well. So maybe not be so hard on Purdue. To go there. But hey, and speaking of, though, in that game, since we're talking about it briefly, we should probably mention that TJ Sheffield led the team in receptions, 7 for 56 and a touchdown.
Good for him.
So good job, TJ. Yeah. If they were going to score, at least it was TJ.
Yeah. And the touchdown.
Yeah, touchdown.
In the 63-7 loss.
Now, their quarterback didn't play. Charlie Jones didn't play. I mean, their two best players didn't play offensively.
And their coach
on top of that, their coach is gone. So, look.
But Drew Brees was there.
True. Yeah. My LSU fan friend down in Baton Rouge, he tweeted, he said, "Hey, Drew, the devil has come to collect." So, and he's a big Saints fan too. So it's just pretty interesting.
Who that?
So anyway, let's take a break. And when we come back, we'll talk a little NBA. NBA, Belmont, who knows?
Yeah.
We'll just throw it all out there. So stick around to Main Street Sports Today, presented by Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint. We'll be back. Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint treats your orthopedic injuries and existing conditions. Our trained physicians will get you back in the game faster. Contact us at 931-381-2663 or www.mtbj.net. Hey folks, while we take a quick break from the show, I want to tell you about our friends over at Custom Stone Handlers in downtown Columbia. Ed Rich and his team at Custom Stone Handlers believe in leadership. And outside of the military, our greatest leader building platform is sports. Custom Stone Handlers proudly encourages young people to get in the game. You can contact them today at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, ZionEagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's ZionEagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
A game without a crowd is just a scrimmage. A performance without an audience is just a rehearsal. Without your presence, high school sports and the performing arts aren't possible. Ensure that these essential extracurricular activities continue to enrich the lives of students in Tennessee. Purchase a ticket to your local high school's game or performance.
This message presented by the TSSAA.
Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint has been the official sports medicine provider for Murray County Schools for more than 40 years. We specialize in orthopedic injuries, and our Ortho Quick walk-in service lets you bypass the ER. Visit us online at www.mtbj.net.
This holiday season, the largest lantern event in the country returns to Nashville Zoo. After sunset, come see more than 1,000 Chinese lanterns. All new designs including mythical beasts, a fantastical North Pole village, even a dragon soaring over your head. Welcome back to Zoo Illumination at Nashville Zoo. Bigger, brighter, and better than ever.
Hockey in Music City just hits different. It's one big honky-tonk party. It's the sea of gold in the crowd. The goals, the saves, the celebrations. It's an experience like no other. Don't miss a minute of the action this season. Visit NashvillePredators.com/tickets to get your seats today. That's NashvillePredators.com/tickets. And we'll see you at Bridgestone Arena.
Walmart Supply Chain is hiring in Lebanon. Earn up to $22.25 an hour when you join our new fulfillment center. Enjoy competitive pay and premium perks, including 100% paid college tuition, 401k match, flexible schedules, a free Walmart Plus membership that includes discounts, and free Paramount Plus, paid time off, and so much more. Fulfilling work starts right here. Text JOIN to 240-240. That's JOIN 240-240 to apply now.
Welcome back in Main Street Sports today, presented by Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint. Chris Yow and Mo Patton here with you on this Wednesday edition. It's Wild and Wacky Wednesday, the weirdest and wildest news from across the world and Florida coming your way in just a few minutes. But before we get to that, we welcome in to talk a little NBA, Landon Sechrist at Seco_sports on Twitter. Landon, what's up, man?
Nothing much. Ready to talk some NBA with Mo and Chris.
Well, wanted to check with you before we do that. How's practice?
It's going good. It's very competitive, as always.
You're not getting singled up on Sidney Harvey too much, are you?
Yes, I am, unfortunately, and I am not the benefactor in those situations at all.
Somehow I figured you weren't. She was only the Valley Player of the Week, last week? So
correct.
Hopefully you're giving her some good looks anyway. But yeah, wanted to get you on, Landon, because I looked up and we're not huge NBA fans, as anybody that follows the show on a regular basis knows, but looked up and the Brooklyn Nets have won 12 straight now.
Yeah, it's very surprising to anyone that hasn't been really monitoring the NBA, because KD and Kyrie are obviously household names, but they weren't winning at first, and now it's like everything is connecting. I mean, KD's getting his buckets, averaging nearly 30, and Kyrie's hitting game winners and playing like normal Kyrie Irving. So it's a scary sight for everyone else that's in the league.
Especially when Boston gets 150 hung on them last night at Oklahoma City.
Goodness gracious. Yeah, 150. That's
franchise record, by the way. Going back to Seattle, they'd never scored 150 points.
I would imagine it's a franchise record for Boston too, in terms of points allowed. So I hope it was. Yeah. So the Nets play tonight. Yeah, they play against Chicago tonight. What do you feel like the chances are of extending that streak?
I feel like the chemistry within the Nets team. I saw a video on Twitter with KD and Kyrie kind of accepting the newly hired coach, and I feel like not much is going to stop the chemistry of how they're rolling right now. I mean, if they're going to go out there and get 30 apiece, it's going to be very hard to stop for any NBA team.
When I'm looking at the Eastern Conference, the Eastern Conference has been kind of down for the last couple of years. Boston snuck into the finals last year, and obviously the Nets were picked to be the favorites last year and should have probably been the favorites this year. The Bucks have been up there. What does this Eastern Conference look like? Atlanta's kind of underperformed this year. Miami, I think, has underperformed. The Knicks, as per usual, underperforming. So I don't know.
But when you've underperformed for that period of time, is it underperforming?
That's the question.
Yeah,
it's kind of like the Mets. But anyway, what does the Eastern Conference look like to you? As the season's coming to the midway point now.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Obviously, the Celtics were kind of separating themselves until they got that 150 put on them last night, and Brooklyn's now up in the win streak, and Giannis just scored 55, I believe it was last night. So it's really a top three, and then there's some other teams up there like Cleveland. We saw Donovan Mitchell score 71 on Monday night. And, I mean, there's some teams to watch, but I feel like it's really only about 4 or 5 teams in the East, the Cavs, the Sixers, along with that top 3. That's really, they're serious. I mean, we've seen some teams have down years, like Chris said, and it's kind of just that first 5 that's really going to make some noise, in my opinion.
What has gone wrong in Atlanta? I saw a tweet that Trae Young may request a trade.
It's interesting with that because Trae obviously is a high-level point guard, all-star, can shoot the lights out, but Atlanta brought in DeJounte Murray, who is also a point guard, and he's kind of having to share the backcourt, and that's kind of an experiment with that being the first year with them together. So it's kind of weird to see Trae share the floor with someone. You know, he's getting the ball out, and he's averaging a whole bunch of assists always, but now he's got to kind of defer almost. And does Trae Young like to do that? I mean, Atlanta is kind of slipping in the standings, so I would say no.
Well, and you go back to LeBron putting up 47 on his birthday and what Clay did, a couple nights ago. It seems like this team is just backpedaling, and that over the last couple of years, you expected Atlanta to be right there in the mix, and now they're barely hanging on to a playoff spot.
Yeah, it's odd because DeAndre Hunter, players like that, were really on the rise. Bogdan Bogdanovic, John Collins was making leaps last year, when they made the Eastern Conference Finals, kind of ascending per se. And then you add someone like a DeJounte Murray to the mix, expecting them to make that next step. And it's kind of like they took a step back, adding a high-level player like DeJounte Murray to the mix.
Does Nate McMillan survive this?
It depends on Trae Young and his situation. I would say they blame the coach in a situation like this with the team kind of underperforming. I don't think they'll sacrifice Trae. I think they'll go for Nate McMillan, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, again, I guess because of Braves Twitter, I also get a lot of Hawks Twitter.
That's
and there are a lot of people who are really ready for firing to be the least action taken against Nate McMillan, I think. So it's getting pretty bad down there. Landon Seacrest at Seacoast_sports joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by Mid Tennessee Bone and Joint, talking a little association. Again, going back to the Nets for just a second, I mean, they had the coaching change early this season, and they've really responded to that. But behind KD and Kyrie, what are you seeing out of this team?
I've watched a few Nets games on TV, on NBA TV, and I was noticing, a TJ Warren who had a nice bubble a few years ago in 2020, but he really isn't a household name. But TJ Warren is in the mix. Obviously, Seth Curry, younger brother of Steph Curry, and then Ben Simmons. I mean, Ben Simmons was an all-star caliber player, and he's getting his 8, 5, and 7, and he's kind of facilitating the offense, letting KD and Kyrie get their shots and being the player the Nets need him to be. And I think that's important, not trying to do too much. And they know who's the 2 top dogs on that team.
It's crazy. We saw Luka with his big night a couple of weeks ago, and then Spider comes back with that 71 points, like you said, on Monday night. The NBA, I mean, on any given night, anybody's liable to go off like that, I guess.
Yes, it seems like there's no defense being played, but I really think it's just the talent level in the NBA is really rising. I mean, there's a lot of young players in the league. I mean, if you consider someone like a Luka Doncic or Donovan Mitchell, young ascending players in the league, I think there's a lot of young talent that's kind of being put on notice.
And a little bit closer to home, Darius Garland had 46 here not too long ago?
Yes, I watched that game. It was phenomenal to see Darius put on a show. I mean, they were playing the Nets in that game, and I mean, he just took over and kind of kept the Cavs in the game in that situation, and he was just holding his own against, a Kyrie Irving, which is very good to see coming from, nearby.
Did you ever get a chance to play against him?
No, and I'm very glad. It wouldn't have turned out in my favor. It would not have.
I'm looking through the Western Conference standings just for fun here. There is not a single Western Conference team with a better than 500 record on the road. Not one.
That doesn't bode real well.
You would think, I mean, the Nuggets, who lead the conference, are 10-10 on the road, 14-3 at home. Memphis is 8-10 on the road, 15-3 at home. I mean, this is crazy. I'm curious why that is, other than the Western Conference is pretty darn good. So when you get on their home floor, it's going to be much more difficult to win on the road in the Western Conference than the Eastern Conference. Would that be accurate to say, Landon?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen like the Warriors. I mean, they were struggling on the road. They had like 3-12 record earlier.
3-16 currently.
Yeah, 3-16 now, and I mean, it's just they're rolling at home. But a team like the Warriors, and they're without Steph Curry now. But I mean, struggling on the road, it's just really crazy to see. But the West is stacked, so it's understandable.
I mean, the fact that Golden State is the number 9 team in the Western Conference is pretty wild, and they've won 5 straight to get there because they were probably out of the playoffs 2 weeks ago. And then of course Memphis is sitting there in the 2 spot. New Orleans is right there with the Grizzlies after Memphis beat them last week. Memphis on a 3-game win streak. The Grizzlies playing really good basketball right now.
Yeah,
now that they have their full lineup.
Mm-hmm.
That's very true. Yeah, Ja Morant is kind of getting the team rolling. I love his signature shoe, by the way. I really think that it's a step in the right direction. I think it's good for Ja. I love to see that, a player from Memphis is getting his own shoe, but they're really rolling, and I like the attention that Memphis is getting, with a Bane in the lineup who's kind of a under-the-radar player, but he's really good, and I think the Grizzlies have a very solid team, and it's obvious because they're number 2 in the West.
Are the Pelicans for real, and how much does Zion's hamstring situation concern you?
I really need to see, Zion and Brandon Ingram on the floor at the same time on a consistent basis because, the Pelicans, they have all this talent and, CJ McCollum is on the team now, but can they get on the floor together is the thing. And are we going to see them at the top of the standings, or are we going to see them dip without Zion, into a play-in game, and then they have to fight their way into the playoffs? But I think the talent is there, but I don't know how they're going to survive, how they're going to fare without, a Zion Williamson.
Someone asked a couple of weeks ago if you were starting a franchise, would you pick Zion or Ja? And I'm like, it's Ja 100%. I'll take the mouthy technicals over not being available because the best ability is
availability.
Thank you. Yeah. Just why would you?
Why is that a debate?
Apparently, it still is. It's insane though, because there's zero chance I'm taking anybody but Ja Morant right now. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. But anyway, yeah. Landon, what's the likelihood of Memphis keeping this pace in the West? I mean, are they going to be a potential 2 seed like they were last year, maybe even better?
I think it's really I think they can really do it because you see a Denver in the top spot. They obviously have someone like Jokic at the top, but Memphis has a Ja Morant, and the top 4 teams really have that guy. You just mentioned that Zion is out for the Pelicans, but the Mavs have a Luka Doncic. So I mean, they're going to be in the mix for sure. Seeing them get to a Western Conference Finals and an NBA Finals would be great to see. Behind Ja Morant. I think that'd be very good for Memphis and, for the league, just getting the Grizzlies more attention. It seems like they're getting more attention now, but it's never enough to, the average fan and Memphis stan per se. But, I think the Grizzlies can be in the mix, and they are in the mix for sure.
Landon Sechrist, sports editor of the Belmont Vision, joining us here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint. Landon, what's going on campus?
I mean, we're getting back on campus, winter break. I mean, everybody's trying to get caught back up as far as sports. Belmont basketball still had games over the break, and everybody's kind of excited now. We had a few games before the break, but, the students are excited to kind of get back in the mix and attend the home games and kind of get that Kerber Event Center kind of rowdy and support the Bruins. I think it's a really good atmosphere on campus. Things are going good. It's a very positive environment up there at Belmont.
So you didn't go to Chicago for the UIC game tonight, huh?
No. Didn't make that trip to the Windy City.
Probably for the best.
Probably for the best, yeah. Landon, man, as always, we appreciate you and your insight on the association and other stuff. And look forward to catching up with you here soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Mo.
Have a good one, man. We'll take a break. When we come back, Wild and Wacky. Love Wild and Wacky Wednesday. Weirdest and wildest news coming your way right after this. Main Street Sports Day. Stick around. Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint treats your orthopedic injuries and existing conditions. Our trained physicians will get you back in the game faster. Contact us at 931-381-2663 or www.mtbj.net. Hey folks, while we take a quick break from the show, I want to tell you about our friends over at Custom Stone Handlers in downtown Columbia. Ed Rich and his team at Custom Stone Handlers believe in leadership. And outside of the military, our greatest leader building platform is sports. Custom Stone Handlers proudly encourages young people to get in the game. You can contact them today at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, ZionEagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's ZionEagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
Are you an enthusiastic sports fan? Want to have fun and get in on the action?
Heck yes, that'd be awesome.
Have great attention to detail? Want to stay active?
Definitely.
Want to give back to the student athletes in your community?
Obviously, yes.
Then you'd make an excellent high school sports official. We need more officials in Tennessee. Because with no high school officials, there are no high school sports. Sign up today at highschoolofficials.com.
Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint has been the official sports medicine provider for Murray County Schools for more than 40 years. We specialize in orthopedic injuries, and our Ortho Quick walk-in service lets you bypass the ER. Visit us online at www.mtbj.net.
We're back.
Welcome back in. Wild and Wacky Wednesday here on this beautiful Wednesday.
You like that? You like that wacky music there?
I like it. Let's go with it. Mo, your contribution to Wild and Wacky Wednesday. We go to Buffalo, New York.
We do go to Buffalo, New York. Last night, the Buffalo Sabres took on the Washington Capitals and won 5-4 in overtime. But yesterday was January 3rd. It was the day after, obviously, the medical event involving Buffalo Bills safety DeMar Hamlin, who wears number 3. So, Tage Thompson, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Tage.
Tage is as easy as good as I'm going to find.
Scored 3 goals
okay.
for the Sabres in the win. It was his 3rd hat trick of the year. And his 3rd goal was the game winner coming 3 minutes into the overtime.
I'm not one to believe in coincidence,
but
that is awfully coincidental.
Yeah,
it looks like a duck.
Sounds like it talks like a duck.
And the Sabres after the game, they just tweeted out, "This one was for you, DeMar," and clearly it was.
That's insane.
Yeah,
how cool is that?
Yeah,
I love a good sports Wild and Wacky, and that is wild. I mean. That doesn't even seem real.
That's movie script ish.
Yeah,
it's hard to do on a video game.
Right, exactly. So,
hey, you know what happened 24 years ago today?
What's that?
24 years ago. Okay, so that's 1998.
January 4th, 1998.
Okay.
You remember anything about that night particularly?
Is that Music City Miracle?
No.
Oh, what was it?
Oh, is that,
Ha ha!
what is that?
23-16. UT over Florida State out in the desert. That's right.
And Mick Foley won the WWF Championship on Monday Night Raw.
What a day.
Oh, by the way.
What a day.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, that has nothing to do with anything. I just saw that come across the screen and thought.
Kind of wild, kind of wacky.
Anything to this music is a little wacky, so it's all good.
I love it. I love everything to this. Yeah, we could be reading the most serious story of this music. And it's all. Point Siena, Florida. Here we go. Are you ready?
First stop.
Two people in Florida were arrested after deputies responded to a home Saturday. A 911 call was made, but nobody spoke. Polk County Sheriff's Office said at the home, the deputies concluded that nobody lived there, but they found a male suspect and his girlfriend inside the home after entering it through an unlocked door. The couple made a 911 call to get help moving their belongings from a home they were burglarizing.
So the cops helped them rob his house.
On the ad, it says y'all will help with anything.
While talking to deputies, the female suspect told them that she had called 911 for the purpose of having law enforcement help them move their belongings from the house that they were burglarizing. They also wanted to get a ride to the airport so they could spend the weekend in New York.
They're like, by the way, if y'all wouldn't mind telling anybody else about this, we'd really appreciate it.
That's great.
The sheriff's office said in a Facebook post, deputies did help them with their belongings and did give them a ride, but it wasn't to the airport, it was to the Pokey.
Man.
And they're welcome to stay there all weekend long.
All expenses
and longer, huh?
The male suspect was charged with burglary and theft related to a store and burglary of a residence, and the female was charged with burglary of a residence according to the sheriff's office. So there you go.
We need this couch moved, but don't come inside. You don't need to come inside. Anything else?
No need. Just hang out here.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Just get it from the door. We'll get it to the door. Then it's, yeah.
Now, Justin and I had this conversation earlier today, Mo, because you partake on occasion, not probably as well as the Scott Stallings who received the invitation to play the Masters.
No, not as well at all.
Hey,
well,
all of us could be lost in the mail.
You don't know how good Scott Stallings, the random dude with a condo, is. So, for those of you who don't know, Scott Stallings, who is a journeyman PGA,
he's from Knoxville,
player,
right? Played at Tennessee Tech.
Was it Tennessee Tech?
I thought it was UTC, but it could be Tennessee Tech, Mo. Actually, now that you say that, that sounds more right.
So Scott was patiently awaiting by checking his mail 5 times a day for the invitation to get to play the Masters. And did you find out or ever hear how the other Scott Stallings got the mail?
No.
Okay. So this is a great story because it could not have happened, like, again, coincidence, right? They sent the invitation to Scott's former management office, but the management office has since been they no longer exist. Well, the address where the management office is adjacent to a condo that this Scott Stallings owns.
So they just took it.
And they say, well, I deliver Scott Stallings mail all the time. I'll just take it to Scott.
Yeah, like this.
Put it in his mailbox.
Well, what's funny is they were even like, okay, that sounds good. You probably know him. Like, didn't question it at all.
I'm just now becoming familiar with this, but there's a story on The Athletic about it.
It is fantastic. So Scott Stallings is now taking Scott Stallings to the Wednesday practice round at the Masters.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, the Scott Stallings who isn't the golfer, apparently...
Well, he is a golfer.
I love how you use
he's not the golfer.
He says I'm 100% sure this is not for me. I
emoji.
played, but wow. Nowhere near your level.
100.
By the way, both of their wives are named Jennifer.
Okay, now it's becoming maybe
so
they're
weird.
Yeah, it's strange. I think they should play for it.
A married real estate duo from Atlanta. Okay, so he does play.
No, he plays.
Yeah.
But not nearly as well as Scott Stallings. The Scott Stallings.
Real recognize real.
I realized it was an invitation to play, not attend, Jenny now says.
He was like, oops.
Like, oh.
Well, he thought they just won the lottery to
go.
get tickets.
Yeah. No.
Me and Chris were talking about
bring your clubs. Yeah.
If we got that note, we should just show up.
I mean, would you just hit a couple balls until they realized I wasn't supposed to be there?
I'm telling you,
it wouldn't take a couple of balls.
You'd be like, "Where's the range at?" It's like, what?
Oh, man. Thank y'all for being with us today here on Main Street Sports Today. We'll see you next time at 2 o'clock. Y'all have a good one.